Hello class. Now, for today's video, we're going to go through methods, or well, in Java it's called methods. In Python it would be called functions. So, slight difference in terminology there. So, first things first, let me make sure I've got all my items up here. I'll make a little file here, and we'll see what a method looks like here. Or not necessarily a method, I suppose, but whoop, function. All right, save. And we'll just go with intro functions. Okay, save. Now, with what we got here, let's take a look. Now, what a function is it's essentially a place in your code that's separate from the rest of it. I can put stuff there, give it a name, and then with that name, I can basically call all the different things, all the lines that are in that method. You can think of it kind of like as a box you set aside. So I create a method, I give it a name, I put 20, 30 lines of code in it, and then further down this list here, I will just say the name and it will run all 30 lines of the code. If I say the name again, it'll run the 30 lines yet again. So we're just going to see a couple of examples of some basic methods here. First off, anytime you define a method in Python, we start off with the def, or definition. And I'll just call this function1. And it starts off pretty much just like this. This is the name, then you'll have some little parentheses here, which we can put some stuff in later. And then of course, you have your typical little colon there. So, whatever I put in here, print fuzzy pickles, that's inside this function. Now, as soon as I tab over, go down a little bit, I can just say function1, and it will run the code that's there. Fuzzy pickles. It doesn't matter how many lines I have here. Print. Oh no. It'll run all the lines that are in there with just this one. So I could have literally hundreds, and with one line, just run the 100 lines of code. I could have loops and all sorts of other things. This is used when typically you're going to use something repeatedly throughout a program. A good example of this would be the map function. Whenever you're like playing a game or something and you want to see the map, you'll probably hit the map multiple times, or your inventory maybe. You'd probably make a function for that with all the code for that particular thing. What this allows you to do is separate code into little specific places. If I were to try to run this and it breaks, well, I know where my error is going to be. It's going to be inside this function. It makes it easier to spot errors, makes it easier to organize and call things. So let's do another one. Here we go. And this time we'll give it something. Function2. Yeah, name. It was first name. So I'm just going to print hello, and then I can just do this. Actually, doot fname. So now that I have something in parentheses here, I have to give it something. So when I say function2, I have to give it something. In this case, I'm going to give it the name, Bob. So when I run this, it should take this name, this value, plug it into this. And then it's going to print hello, whatever that value happens to be. There you go. Now, because Python is very loose with how things are defined, this technically could be, 45, and it would print off hello 45. Change it back. Uh, if you were doing this in Java, you have to specifically say what type everything is, and then you can only pass that type. So it's a little easier in this regard to do it here. Now I can pass it more than one thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be two things. And I can do that simply just by change that last name. We'll come down here and just print another little thing. Hello, first name. We'll just do a little, I want a space there. There we go. And last name. Now if I try to run this, it's going to give me a bit of an issue because it doesn't match. That has one thing and it requires two. So Bob, and I'll pass in Baggins. Now I've got two things here, and I've got two things here. They match. So I should run, hello, Bob Baggins, just like that. Now, let's try a little bit of perhaps some math or something like that. Oh, and I should mention, where you define does matter a bit. If I were to, let's say, try to do this here and run it. As far as Python's concerned, it is fine if you do it that way. But what if I try to do this up here? Let's see what happens. Was it still okay? No. So if this were Java, it actually doesn't completely matter where you put things, but boop, this does. So the general rule of thumb is to put all your functions and definitions and variables and things first. And then whatever code you're going to run comes usually after that. So let's make one more. Function 3. And I'll give it some values here. Let's just call it number. Now anything tabbed over after this is in that method. So the second I space back over, the method ends. So in this case, if I were to come here and try to do something, well, I wouldn't be able to. Print hi. We'll run, and it's going to give you an indentation error, thinking this needs to be tabbed over. Now if I run that, it works for the most part. Now, one thing I should mention, let's move you back a bit. There we go. The order here doesn't matter completely, but it will not run if I don't, the word would be call it. Call a function. You call a function by basically writing out its name, giving it whatever it needs to be given. This function 3 up here isn't ever called, so nothing happens. So in this case, I'm just going to say number equals number plus 10. Print the number is, comma, in this case, number. So if I do call it though, and I come down here and just say, function 3, 9,000. Now it should pass the 9,000 up here, and it should go ahead and add 10 to it. It should print off 9,010. So with that, there we go, over 9,000. Now I know we would do one more, but let's do one last one. This time we're going to do it a little differently, and that is I'm going to return a value. These functions we did before, all they do is just simply display something on the screen. There are times where you want to, maybe pass something up here and then get some value back after it does some math or something. 4. and we'll give it a number again. And what I'm going to do is return a number, let's say times 2. Now, the keyword return will give that number back to wherever it's called. So if I run this, see, nothing's happening because I haven't called it. Now, if I were to come down here and just say function for and give it a 10, that should be 20, right? But what you're going to note is when I run this, nothing pops up over here at all. Actually, it did run this. If I do a little print statement up here, you'll see it actually does go in. Print, it's in function for. But, there you go. What ends up happening is when we get up here, it returns this number, which would be 10 times 2, which would be 20. And this line here essentially becomes 20. So var equals this. Print, if I just print var, I should get my 20 there, like that. So what ends up happening is we pass the 10 up to this here, plug it into this value. All right, its function for gets printed on the screen, right there. Then we return 10 times 2, which is 20. This line here essentially becomes 20. So var equals 20. And then we print 20, which is why you get 20 on the screen there. All right, that's a quick, rough rundown of some basic intro to methods. In a later video, we'll do a little bit more in depth, add a couple more things to it. But that is essentially it. So zoom out. If you have any questions and anything, obviously leave a message, ask me, but that's it.